I mean, we have to understand something that we are natural athletes, or probably we are, what do I say, even people who like training, but we might not be athletes as well. We might be regular people who have regular jobs, and in our spare time, probably rather than watching a movie, we just go to the gym and train, probably 5 days a week. So, and we do not probably take any supplements, or we might take supplements. Supplements hardly works. Most of them, they hardly work. And the other thing is, we probably might not have genetics as well. So we have to be very careful when we train on these compound movements, be it a deadlift or bench or a overhead press. I don't think we should uh, try to lift heavier amounts on a consistent basis. So
Well,
that can
yeah.
avoid injuries. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I could turn back the clock, I would try and grow the most muscle with the least amount of weight. Because
Absolutely.
30 odd years later, your shoulders and knees sound like a bag of popcorn.
Yeah, they take a
Crunching
beating.
noises and
Yeah.
cracking noises. So putting hundreds upon hundreds of pounds through through your joints for decades is probably not very good for them.
Not very good. Yeah.
A lot of the guys that I've seen over the years, like I knew them when I was younger, and now they've got shoulder troubles, knee troubles, back problems. It's just,
Yeah. I mean,
you just wear yourself out.
yeah, the reason being, I mean, your muscle does respond and they become stronger, but it's not the same case with your tendons and ligaments. They take a back seat, and since your muscles are stronger, the tendons and the ligaments give away, and that's how you have ligament tear and all the injuries, and that
Mm.
does come back to you, does haunt you as you grow older.
I mean, the first guy who showed me round the gym, the trainer, Len Sells, he had a trainer there that would show you what to do and that. And he was a real powerful guy. I mean, I was 17 and I knew him up until I was in my 40s. And I
Okay.
see him at another gym years and years later, and he knelt down on the floor to get some protein powder or something from under a shelf. And he had to crawl along the floor to a chair and push himself up on the chair because he couldn't stand it. He couldn't bend down and get back up. His knees were that bad. Still a
Okay.
big guy, still strong, but he just could. His knees had gone.
Right. I
So
mean,
it's not a recipe for lifting heavy weights for many years. Isn't a recipe for you know getting on very well when you're old.
absolutely, it's not. It's not
Nor is
a
gravity either.
how is your training changed compared to now to then? Same with the diet, and how do you feel as in terms of training?
Uh, I'm actually trying to, do more than what I did when I was younger. I mean, we didn't have a lot of knowledge. When I was in my 20s, there was no internet. All there was the magazines. So there wasn't
Okay.
much knowledge about, and I don't see why I can't train 6 days a week, like I
Okay.
used to when I was younger. I don't feel any different really, you know.
Okay.
You're still able to build muscle when you're older. Uh,
Okay.
it's just motivation, most people, as they age, they have kids and stuff, and it's far easier to get home and sit in front of the TV
Okay. So
than to
it's
go.
more to well, you say it's more of time management and the desire.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I haven't got any kids. I live on my own at the moment, so in other words, I've got nothing better to do really. So I just go down the gym, and it just keep. I'm more interested in it now, I suppose, than I've ever been,
Okay.
and I'm just proving to myself I can make improvements at 50. As as for diet, I don't really concentrate very much on diet. I mean, you know, if you look on YouTube, everybody seems to be obsessed with body fat levels and macros, and is a ketogenic diet better than a high carb diet and all the rest of it. And really, all you need to do is just look at your parents. If your parents and your grandparents are fat, then you know you're liable to be fat if you don't watch what you eat. Well,
absolutely.
Mine were thin, so if a thin person puts a bit of fat on as they're bulking, it doesn't really matter because it's not natural for that person. So the fat will come off pretty easy. And if you look at your mum and dad and they're quite fat, then yeah, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to be careful of your diet because you're liable to get fat and not be able to get it off.
Right.
So that's my view. It's quite a simplistic view of it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And nor do I believe in counting macros or like, I mean, going to that detail, body fat measurement, those sort of things. Until unless you're on stage, if you are a professional, you're competing at that elite level, or you have that intention of going on stage, then yes, everything matters because you're trying to perfect it. If not, then look at health, probably progressively build muscle and have a healthier life and have a healthier outlook towards life.
Yeah, it's as simple or as complicated as you want to make it. I mean, if you applied the same thing to driving a car, for instance, you're not going to, I mean, most people, you just get in the car and use it. You're not going to take it to pieces to find out how it works. You know, it's taking it to that level, worrying about what body fat percentage you are. I mean, if you can see veins and you can see your abs, then I think that's enough, really. You don't need to actually know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you train naturally and matter of fact, even without the supplements, I can tell you that you can have a six-pack ab. It's not necessary that you have to have supplements or fat burners, or even for that matter, you need not dig too much into macros. You can still have cheat days and still have that six-pack ab, but not the same definition as you see on the magazine. And I don't think that's that's practical as well, because we all know that they have it probably 2 or 3 days, or even on the day of the contest. It's not that something they carry all day long. And having 6 meals or 7 meals a day is highly impractical, especially if you're have a 8 hours of shift or something like that. So it's highly impractical.
I mean, for women, you see the picture of fitness models with six-pack abs, and that's not particularly healthy for a woman. Absolutely. They're supposed to have enough, biologically, they're supposed to have enough fat for a full-term pregnancy.
Right.
And I shouldn't think any of them have got enough fat for that. So, you're fighting the body to get that sort of low body fat.
It's body's mechanism. I mean, I think if you look at when you go into this drastic dieting, you come to a point where you don't lose any more fat. That's body's defense mechanism, because we need body fat. If I were to probably get into a very freezing water, the body can have hypothermia, and it's scientifically proved that a fatter person has far more chances of surviving in that particular freezing cold water than compared to somebody who is like 10% body fat or 6% body fat. So how useful is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, human beings wouldn't have survived as we wouldn't be around if it wasn't for being able to hold body fat, because in times of famine and that, if you didn't have some fat on you'd die pretty quick. So the body will sacrifice muscle far quicker than far more readily than it will fat. So it's when girls are slimming down for a competition, they're going to lose muscle as well as losing fat, if not more muscle than fat, because the body will do everything it can to hold on to the fat. That's the last thing it wants to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And
muscles just functional. It's not, the muscle's just functional, really. It's not actually needed as much as the fat is. You know, the fat is storing fat. There's a reason why we store fat so easily. You know, it's a survival thing, and there's a reason why it's harder to put muscle on, because it's not really needed.
I mean, it's the same way. I can give you an example with probably martial arts. I mean, why do you know drops when you get knocked out, as in you pass out? Because that's body's defense mechanism where it shuts down, you know, so that it doesn't take any more damage. That's why you get knocked out and you passed out. It's the same theory with you know, holding body fat.
Yeah, it's just a. I mean, it takes a lot of stimulation to put it on. It doesn't take much.
Do you follow the current, you know, current affairs with bodybuilding? What's going on and stuff, Mr. Olympia?
No, but not really. I've taken interest in the Olympia when it's coming up. I mean, I saw a recent picture of Phil. It was on Louis Marco's channel, Phil Heath, and he's got his big gut sticking out, and he's only got a couple of weeks to go. So God knows how he's gonna, what condition he's gonna be in for the show. I mean, Kai Green looks incredible.
Kai Green looks incredible. But I think somebody, I mean, I predict that he's going to win the competition. But if I were to fairly look at it from a aesthetic point, I would always love the 70s or probably the 80s and I think the late 90s, where you have physiques like, you know, Frank Zane or Chris Dickinson, Bob Paris, and there was another guy, I guess. Those are the pretty much physiques which appeal to the common people, common public, general public, and looks attainable. Even though, I mean, we do know that they all took steroids. That's a different thing. But those are something which are attainable and are appealing to general physique, not something which is like outrageous.
Which most of them probably take as steroids as well, to be honest. I think a lot of them do.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
You know, because to stay at a really low body fat percentage and, you know, have a decent physique, have a decent muscle size, it's not easy to do without chemicals. I don't think. You know.
We already have too much of chemicals and chemical reaction in our body. I don't think we need to put in furthermore to complicate the process which is already taking place. Because that's what happens. I mean, you have like 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds taking steroids, and that naturally shuts down the production of testosterone in their body. I don't see the you know, why you have to do it.
Yeah, the thing is though, with you know, men's testosterone levels have been dropping over the last 100 years. I mean, we use so many pesticides. They're estrogen-based pesticides. The idea is to, you know, to kill, to mess up the insects and the reproduction. So a lot of the insecticides have got, you know, estrogen in them. So it gets into the food chain. So men's testosterone levels have dropped a lot over the years, since the First World War anyway, since modern farming really kicked off.
Right.
And that's a problem, you know. I mean, when the people say you should eat, you know, eat clean, eat this and that, it's been sprayed to death with all sorts of stuff. I mean, a friend of mine works in the farm, used to work in the farming, and every day or every week or whatever, they would have to give the chickens antibiotics. And every day his first job in the morning was to throw out all the dead ones. Because they're it's so intense farming, they're packed in there so much, they have to give them antibiotics to keep them alive. Obviously still get quite a few deaths. And that was his first job in the morning, throw out all the dead ones. And then he said to me, they're not supposed to sell the chickens they're supposed to stop the antibiotics for 2 weeks before they sell the chickens for, you know, for food. But do they stop it for 2 weeks? You know, you don't know. And that gets into, you're eating something that's been spent his life being given antibiotics.
Right.
I mean, in your country, you're still using DDT and stuff like that we banned years ago. You're still using it on your food.
No, but I think it's stopped considerably. But I think, I mean, pollution is all over the place. I did, matter of fact, watch a documentary, right, which was on, I think it was on how they, like, there are like dead cows and stuff, dead cattle, right? There are vultures which feed on it. And what happened was these vultures started to vanish. Now they vanished. They actually vanished completely from India, and this is something which I saw on Discovery. And when they got into the matter and into depth, it took like 2 years to find out that it was because of some sort of antibiotic or a painkiller sort of injection, which were injected to these cattle or whatever animal they were, to protect from diseases and stuff. And since these vultures were feeding on them, they had some sort of disease and they started to die. So I think you never know, that can happen to us too.
I mean, whenever you buy any salad in this country, if you go in the supermarket and buy a salad that's in a plastic bag, it always says on the outside, wash before eating. Right. I mean, if you're spraying your crops with insecticide or whatever, I very much doubt if it washes off. You know, if it rains, well, if it rains, it doesn't wash it straight off. You know, what does that do? You know, over years of eating it, I don't think it's very healthy, really, to be honest. I think all the foods. You know, even supplements. I mean, there's a website you can go on that shows what sort of heavy metals and that are in supplements, because you get it in them as well. Okay. If you look on, there's a website. If you look on, put into Google supplement contamination or something like that. There's a list of all the worst supplement makers and how high the incidence of heavy metals and other contaminants are in the protein.